So this is normally an hour-long talk, and I'm going to try to compress it in 20 minutes so we can have questions at the end. The slides will be online, so the full slides for the normal entire presentation that Corey and I give. So we don't need to rush through all the slides, but I'll try to kind of go over kind of the key important ones. So we're Kite Lightning. We're kind of a two-man team. We've been doing VR for the last 3 years now, since the Kickstarter days. I'll kind of just show you guys one of the last things we did.
So we can experience firsthand what it looks like inside the mind of a musician. This scan of Ruben's brain, produced on GE Healthcare's MRI machine, will help us navigate through this experience, look around it, and take a peek inside. Before we take off, I'll mention 2 safety points. Be sure to stay on the platform, and you'll find it more comfortable not to move around while we're moving. Okay, let's get going. Initiating miniaturization sequence. Entrance point activated. Wow.
Welcome to the complex universe inside Ruben's head, the crown jewel of the human experience and home to nearly 100 billion neurons communicating through trillions of connections. That's more connections than stars in our galaxy.
So that was a project we did for GE and AMD. It was 2 of us full-time working on it, and then we contracted out a couple of other people. And I think, if memory serves me correct, we worked on it for about 2.5 months to 3 months, and then we had the equivalent of one other person full-time for 2 months. So effectively like 3 people on the project. And so the question we get asked all the time is, how do you do this, on such a small team? What do you guys, how do you guys manage to do all this? So we're going to try to go over all the things that we kind of do on our production schedules and things, and we kind of want to talk about all the kind of the actual context that kind of goes around that. And basically, it's centered around lessons that I wish I could give ourselves 2 years ago, and hopefully it's some concrete, actionable steps in addition to high actionable, philosophical things that we try to think about. I'll just be going over the technical portion of this, and the slides also cover the concepting creative portion that Corey goes over. So yeah, how do we do this on a 2-man team? So background context, because I feel like that's also necessary. So Corey's been in the VFX industry for 20 years. He's got like 2 Emmys. He's also one of the most technically gifted artists that I've ever met in my entire life. So for any programmers in the audience, we really wanted to set up Confluence and Jira, and I hate Jira and Confluence and didn't want to set it up. So I was like, yeah, I'll add it to my list of things to do, right? The programmer's response to, yeah, I don't really want to do this. So over the weekend, he picked up how to set up a MySQL database and a LAMP server on AWS, and on Monday, boom, we had Jira and Confluence set up. I was like, all right, I guess we'll use this now. So my context, I started doing game dev and 3D when I was 12 years old, and I started out on the art side, so conversationally fluent in Max and Maya and can do effects and things. So our philosophy is that people should be super strong in one area, but also have a wide swath of broad skills. And that kind of really helps us work at a really fast pace. And then the last thing is the real secret is that we just don't have lives. This is from my time tracker when we were on the Insurgent project for Lionsgate. And this was the month of January, where I also took 7 days off to go celebrate my birthday in Brazil. So that is 300 hours working on the project. with 7 days off. So definitely do not recommend it, but this is how we're able to accomplish a lot of crazy things. So I want to dive into kind of our workflow. We start at the beginning. We have a very hard rule of like everything should be at near performance at all times. VR kind of mandates this because artists don't really like to work, in VR when it's like at shitty frame rates because they'll want to throw up. So there's not really a lot of pushback from like the design side or the creative side. A lot of game studios leave performance to kind of the tail end. And we basically have 2 months to 3 months windows on all the productions that we've done, for all of our clients. So we say we have about 1.5 tries to get it right. So at the beginning, we set triangle counts, shader complexity, and we never try to have people stray too far below that. It saves us from having this really painful part at the end where, nothing, the performance is at 40 frames a second and you got like 3 weeks to like get everything back up to speed to 90. So we say, nope, fuck that. That's not the way we're going to work. Because artist time is the most expensive time, especially on 3-month turnarounds. You can't afford we can't afford on small teams to do art redo, especially art that is at a really high quality level. So we have to make sure that once we do art finalization, that is done and we don't go back. At bigger studios, especially at AAA studios, you get to the perf pass and you can redo the arts, you can do the rigging, you can redo the textures. If people went too crazy, you can kind of, force them to remodel stuff. We don't have that luxury, so everything has to be good from the first go. The other thing is that tools really are a big multiplier or detractor from your workflow. We're really amazing at focusing, but even with us, creativity is a very limited resource. And if you're sitting there all day fighting your tools, by the end of the day, you're just going to be drained and don't want to take that extra mile to make something really awesome and polished. And the concrete things that we take, is that, for example, most of the code we end up doing in blueprints because even though it's slower for me as a dev or a technical artist to make things in blueprints as opposed to like make things in C++, if I make it in blueprints, I know everybody else can use it and debug it and kind of run with it. So I always think about maximizing for like the team's optimal performance instead of your own personal optimal performance. If we did something in C++ and it took me like 5 minutes to do it, but now anytime anyone else has to touch it or if it gets broken or someone wants to add to it, I become the bottleneck to that. And that's really important because the people that we try to work with or the people that work with us really well are those people that are like multidisciplinary. So if they're a designer, they can also do things in blueprints, or they can do some light coding, or they can do some technical look dev or shader development. And having this multidisciplinary team and thinking about how to make the multidisciplinary team operate at a really high level is really, really important for us. The caveat, of course, is that longer dev time, for longer time windows, the development end can definitely be the long pole. But again, this is just for 1 to 3 month time windows. If you're working on like an 18-month long game or 3-4 year long game, then the technical risk or the technical development can easily be the risky thing. Another reason why we hire, even on the technical side, we want all the people that we hire to be creative as well, is it's amazing how fast shit gets fixed when developers have to use the tools, right? Like devs have a very low tolerance for annoying tools or annoying programs. And so we found that, if you hire artistic or creative technical people, and they're using the tools to make effects or make art, things just magically get better because they'll just be like, I can't believe this tool is so crappy or this is so broken. I know every time like I go in and we start doing technical art or doing some stuff, and I'm just like, I'll do one thing or 3 times manually, and after that I'm like, this needs to be automated. I don't want to point and click for the rest of my life. some concrete things on what we use. We use Perforce for project source control. I hate it, but what can you say? We use GitHub for our engine. We don't have any continuous integration. We use Visual Studio because it's nice and it's the 21st century. We use IncrediBuild on RAID 0 SSDs because we like to live on the edge, but we also do backups frequently. The result is that we have 5-minute full-time engine recompiles and 1-minute project recompile times. And that's been super important to us, is having that fast iteration cycle. I think on SSDs without IncrediBuild, it was 15 minutes instead of the 40 minutes it takes on regular drives. And of course, that wasn't fast enough, so we bought into IncrediBuild. We use Slack for communication, Workflowy to do our to-do lists, OneNote for note-taking, Box for file storage, and Excel for our financing. And then Notepad for our production task list, which if there's any producers or project managers in here, I know they shudder at that. And that is definitely one area where we're super not so great at. For the camera gear that we've used in the past, when you did the voice project with Pharrell and Gwen and the other judges, we used the 360 Hero GoPro camera rig. When we went to Insurgent and shot Kate Winslet and Mekhi Phifer and those other folks, we just used the 2 regular Blackmagics to shoot stereo plates. Of course, all this stuff is getting outdated really quickly and as new hardware vendors come out. So I want to dive into the team real quick. And like I said, the contractors that we use that work really well for us are kind of like T-shaped people. We say generalist specialist. Everybody has to be technical and creative. Back in the day when we were on our Unity days, in the dark ages, as I call them, Corey was writing C# code for gameplay. For our Insurgent project, I did the fixing the fracturing and sequence in the train tracks in the train destruction sequence. And it's really awesome when you have multidisciplinary people because everybody can kind of do and contribute all the way across the stack. Even on business side roles, there's this one producer, I can't pronounce his name, but he's by trade, his specialty is he's a games producer. But if you go online in his spare time, he has a full-on UE4 shooter tutorial with like multiplayer, like gameplay, networking, all sorts of stuff that you wouldn't even expect from a technical artist, much less someone who wears a suit, quote unquote. We always say that VR development for us is kind of like a dog sled race instead of like pushing a block down the street. More people isn't necessarily faster. We can only run as fast as your slowest person. So all of this we also think about is philosophically depends on the type of team that you run, and we're a very specific style of working that works for us. We say like you can be like Alexander the Great or like SEAL Team 6, and we're definitely more on the SEAL Team 6 side. For us, we're a very small group of people who can do a bunch of different things, and so we're quick and nimble. And there's minimal process, there's minimal meetings. That's just our personality and the way we like to work, even to our detriment. And we're just like, if you want to put something in, we don't care who you are. If you're a producer, designer, whatever, if it's good, it makes it into the project. What that means, though, that comes with downsides, is that adding another person slows us down. So that new person has to be that much bigger or better to offset the slowdown of having another person on a very finely tuned optimal team. Whereas if you're kind of like this huge man army like these AAA studios, adding another person is just kind of adding more manpower. We learned this the hard way, as we were growing over the last couple of years. Some people may be super excellent, generals, but will fail miserably as like specialized spec ops folks. And that doesn't mean they're bad or good. It just means that they thrive in one environment versus the other, or they prefer one environment or the other. So, we can have an exceptional developer, that we contracted out this developer who came from AAA, who's kind of really great, had a great, resume on paper. And we could, like within 2 weeks, we knew like it just wasn't going to work out because he was just very specialized and used to having people give him a list of things to do, and he would kind of go down that list. And he was very specialized in what he needed to do. And we were in the middle of Insurgent, some asset came in from some other artist that we were contracting, and the normals were all inverted and things like that. And I was like, oh, dude, while you set up the destruction, there's just, can you fix the normals? Just open up Max and fix that. Or there was another thing I asked him where it's like, oh, we need to create a test level where we can do like the destruction sim in it with just like spheres and stuff. And why don't you just like create kind of that in Max? And he was like, I've never used Max in my life or Maya or anything like that. And to me, it's like open up Max, 2 buttons, add a modifier, flip it, flip normals and re-export. And he's just used to a different pipeline or a different process where someone else would do all that. And we were like, I can't kick that asset back to the contractor who's like on another time zone and things like that. And so that's where we've learned the lesson. And again, it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that it's a different environment. And we've found that knowing the environment that you thrive in and you want your team to thrive in is super, super important and helpful to making really awesome stuff. Now I want to talk about some high-level general rules of development that we just kind of try to follow on the technical side and on the creative side. At the end of the day, the number one thing is you got to ship it. Execution is like the most important thing on the technical and on the creative side. It doesn't matter if you have these amazing grand visions, if you can't actually execute on it or actually make it. It's easy to sit back and think of grandiose ideas. It's a different thing to actually bring those ideas into reality. The second most important rule right after that for me is that you have to make it easy to change. In any creative endeavors, how long your iteration time determines your final output. Then some corollaries to that is, make things local, not global. Make things as local as you can, so you don't have to make globalized changes. Make things first small and composable, and then do concrete things first, and then generalize. The next thing is that prototyping is greater than having arguments. So there was 2 great examples of this. There was the snap turning, which I guess comfort mode that is common now. In the beginning, there was internal debate whether that would work or not, and it was like that debate was settled with a 5-minute prototype. It was like, all right, it actually works. Same thing with the stereoscopic video plugin that we use or we're kind of known for. And there was internal debate in the beginning, and it was like, oh, no way, that technique would never hold up. And, it's like, all right, over a weekend, put that together, and it's like, holy shit, this is amazing. And we used it on several projects since then. And the final thing I kind of want to end on is we're going to talk about speed versus accuracy of iteration is crucial. So this kind of goes back to kind of like executing is key, iterating is key. I always use the analogy of like hill climbing. If you're on a plot of land and you're trying to find the highest hill, your experience and how good your ideas is, or how great your ideas are, comes from experience, and that's the equivalent on that plot of land being like, I've traversed this plot of land or something very similar to it. I think the tallest hill is going to be in that direction. And that's really important. That's the accuracy of your iteration, right? So not spending time on things that aren't going to work. And then speed of iteration is like how fast you're actually going to walk and traverse that plot of land. And on a 2-man team, and especially in VR, we prefer people who are fast at executing versus people who have a lot of experience. Obviously, both is really good. But for us, speed is more important because VR is such an unknown territory. So there's a lot of past experience doesn't matter. And then it's amazing when you have people who are really fast at executing, because that means if on like Thursday or Friday, someone comes up with a crazy idea of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we tried this silly thing, And people are like, I don't think that would work. If they're really fast, and they're really motivated, they can, on a Saturday, just like put it together and, try it out. And then on Monday, like, hey, look, I tried it. It works. Don't you see? And everyone's like, okay, awesome. Let's add this to the schedule, although that is a terrible idea, But it's so awesome. And like that's how we do so many things on our team. Whereas if you have someone with experience and it takes them a week to make something, we're like, we don't have a week to burn on a 2-month, 3-month timeline. So that's why we really prefer like fast iteration and speed. Of course, along with that, like I use the analogy that some things can't be done slowly, which is very counterintuitive. In elementary school, we were taught that shoot for the moon, you land on the stars. And that's really terrible advice, I found, because software and interactive pieces, are like non-linear. So some things have to be done at a fast speed, and it's kind of like sending a rocket to space. If you send a rocket at half critical velocity, it's not going to take twice as long to get up there. It's going to take infinitely long to get up there. The caveat, of course, is that some things can only be done slowly, right? So 9 pregnant women can't make a baby in 1 month. So now you have to know the difference of when to go fast and when to go slow. And I like to use this mnemonic that's very colorful that came up from like one argument that me and Corey had like 4 years ago when we first were meeting each other. And everyone who meets Corey is amazed at how fast he gets to quality at speed. Like he's literally 10 people rolled into one. And anyone on the art side who's seen the work that Corey does is like, unbelievably amazed by, he's one of the rare people who has amazing creative vision and is like amazing at executing, right? And, we're talking about like our approach to things. And he said, if I need to hammer in a nail, I'll like reach for whatever I need to reach to like get it, even if I have to like grab a dildo to hammer in the nail. I was like, very colorful. I don't think I will ever forget that. And it's right. And I always thought about that because for excellence, quality-driven people, we tend to be perfectionists, and sometimes that perfectionism is misplaced. If your job is to hammer the nail, like you just want to nail in that nail, not find perfect hammer and tool to help you do that. And I know personally that is one of the things that I constantly have to watch out for. I'm like, what is the job at hand here, right? I need, I don't need perfectionism in everything, even though I want it, right? I don't want everything to be excellent. I want my job that I'm doing to be excellent. The counter to that, though, is there's some things that you have to spend a lot of time in, right? So if you're making a building, you don't want your your frame of the building to be made out of wood or plywood. Like you need it to be made out of steel rebars. So we always say, are you laying down foundation or hammering in nails? And if you're hammering in nails or applying paint on a building, that's when you can cut corners, as long as the paint job in the end is really good, or as long as you nailed in that nail really well. And we'll do so many different quick hacks and cheats, because we're like, this is the end result that we care about. Whereas some things, it's like we're laying down the foundation of the project. Like we need to spend a lot of time making sure that is really well built so that it doesn't topple over, a week from now or 2 weeks from now, Classic example for any developers that are in here is that we were in the middle of Insurgent and we were writing our Alembic importer, to process the data, and then it was going to go into the project. And there's like, it's 4 a.m. and it's like taking everything works, but it's like takes like an hour to process the Alembic file because God bless Maya, it malforms the Alembic file, and there's a lot of data duplication in there. And I looked at the code and I was like, okay, I know how to fix this. I would have to like re-architecture the entire code. Or I can put in like 2 go-to statements and no one will ever know. So the 2 go-to statements won, and no one will ever see that source code ever again. So this is the end of the portion that I wanted to talk about. We can continue. Well, we'll do a show of hands. Who wants to do Q&A, and who wants to go finish some more of the slides? All right, if you want to do Q&A, raise your hands. If you want to finish the slides, raise your hands. Oh, shit, okay. Q&A's for losers, apparently. All right, we'll talk about creativity, right? So creativity and inspiration, we always say, is a very limited resource. People ask us, like, how are you and Corey able to work these 12, 14-hour days? We think there's a couple of things. A, we have to, so that makes things really easy. But B, it's really easy to work on things when you're creatively motivated and inspired. Of course, you have to watch out for burnout and all that horribleness. But it's when things are flowing really well and all your creative energy is going into making things better, and you're not fighting your tools. We'll easily go 8-10 hours, and both Corey and I will forget to eat lunch and dinner and whatnot. But if you're fighting your tools and things are just breaking all the time, then it's really challenging. You're like, I hate my life. I want to change careers. Should have been a stripper, right? So, for example, I use this analogy called energy hours. I personally have 15 energy hours a day. On magical days, I can work those 15 hours no problem. But different activities burn different hours, right? So if I'm doing great programming, 1 hour is equal to 1 energy hour. If I'm dealing with bullshit programming, I have to install this framework, why is Windows force updating my machine? Oh dear God, everything is now broken. If I have to touch perforce in any way, right? That's 3 hours. 1 hour is equal to 3 hours of energy programming, energy hours. If I'm interacting with other people, it depends. It could be actually more motivating, or it could be very draining, depending on who I'm talking to. If I'm creatively brainstorming with Corey, it's at the end of that, I'm even more motivated to do some crazy stuff and fit it into this impossible schedule, right? If I'm dealing with incompetent people, then I'm why do I do this for a living, right? It's 4 hours of that, I'm done. I don't want to work anymore. Same thing for answering business, email, anything not related to the actual making of stuff, marketing, status reports or TPS reports, 4 energy hours for every hour. P.S. If you like doing any of that stuff, come work for us. I have so much stuff that you can do for us. So we're always kind of very cognizant of those hours, and we ferociously guard them. We're really good at just kind of, and it comes at a cost, right? So we're not really quick to respond to emails. We kind of ignore a lot of stuff that, we just try to guard those hours as much as possible. And that was part of the reason why we moved from LA to Paris, to kind of put ourselves in a bubble and kind of have an even more guard on that precious time. And, it's just that our personalities is that we naturally kind of gravitated towards that, and then over the years I've learned or became conscious of it. And now that we're conscious of it, it's an even more important thing of being protect that very scarce resource. And then that's how we were able to work those 15-hour days for 6 days a week, and then you're really passionate about what you're doing and you're enjoying all the fruits of your labor. We do have areas to improve, so we do want more feedback loops and telemetry. I always say, data gets a bad rap because I always feel people use it at two different types of people use it in the two differently wrong ways. I say data and feedback is kind of comedians are the best example as creatives who use it properly. You wouldn't think that a comedian would go out, tell a joke, and if it bombed and no one laughed, he'd be well, they just, that was wrong, right? They don't know what they're doing, right? The crowd is wrong. But at the same time, a comedian would never tell a joke, and if it bombed, go to the audience and be all right, tell me how I should fix the punchline, right? And I that's how artists and biz people look at data. The artists don't want to look at it at all, and incorporate that. And while the business people are asking their audience to how to fix the problem. So I think data always shows you how people react. It can only reveal problems. It will never tell you solutions. That's what your job is. The comedian joke. The other thing is we do a good job of treating our code like data. We need to treat our data more like code. For example, validating scene hierarchies, sanity check vertex counts, and things like that. There's a lot of manual processing in our process workflow and in game development in general that could just easily be fixed, naming conventions and things like that are all easily scriptable. Should be things that a computer should do easily, but a lot of that stuff isn't easily scriptable yet. again, take all of this stuff with a grain of salt. This is kind of what's worked for us. It's just one way of doing things. It's kind of what's worked for us and our personalities, but like flavors of ice cream, you got to find your own flavor that you enjoy. We're very much self-driven. Some of the other things that help this style of work for us, we don't expect people to wait to do things. We just expect you to take initiative and do things on your own. If some people, as one of the learning, growing pains we've learned is that, we just assumed everybody is like this. Like, oh man, process is the worst. I don't want to have to ask someone what to do or tell me what to do, and we just assume that that's just how everyone is, and the reality is there's different styles of work. For us, it's just we want you to come up with awesome, crazy ideas and to be motivated to do it, because that's how we operate. Not very minimal project management, actually too little. We're trying to fix that. But if you do like process management, things like that, again, a lot of this stuff probably would not be a very good fit. And again, we're a very small team. We want to be, we're 2 people now, but I would say small, even up to 10 to 20 people. That's what I would consider kind of small. That means that we can do certain things really well, but there's also some things that we would never be able to do. Doesn't matter how skilled you are, if you're 10 people big, you're not going to make Assassin's Creed 4, right? You need a massive army of people. Likewise, there's some things that those big superstar or super large army of teams can't ever do that, small teams can do. So I think I've ran over. I don't know how we're doing on time. That's it. All right, perfect. Thanks so much. I'll be around if you guys have questions, so feel free. Hope you enjoyed it.